Well, hello everyone. Today we're going to be adding the topic that needs to be covered this semester related to APA style. APA style stands for the American Psychological Association. That's what APA stands for. This is the publication manual and it's the 7th edition. There are many changes made from the 6th to the 7th edition. The 6th edition was used for a lot of time, a long time, and now we're going to be looking at the 7th edition. So in this PowerPoint, we will be covering APA basics. Remember, APA is the American Psychological Association. How to create and write our in-text citations. Remember that we need to credit the sources of information, and how to create the references list at the end of the paper. When I say paper, it could be the essay, but it could also be a research paper. In our case, in this course, we're just going to be writing essays. But first, some words of wisdom. The word plagiarism, we have already covered the topic of plagiarism. Remember that in the syllabus is included. But what is plagiarism? Is an act of presenting another person's work or idea as your own. Look at this guy here. He's a thief. He's an idea thief. He's stealing someone else's work. He has it in his bag, and he has the intention of using these ideas as his own. But of course, he will get caught. You cannot use someone else's words, ideas, and say they're your own ideas. That's why this PowerPoint is important, because we will learn one of the important topics here is how to create in-text citations. When we use someone else's words, we need to credit the source. APA Basics. The American Psychological Association, from now on known as APA, right? Citation style format is used for manuscripts in the social sciences, pedagogy, and linguistics majors or fields. What does APA regulate? APA regulates stylistics, right? So this is related to how your manuscript looks. When we say manuscripts, right here, this word means your paper, right? Your written paper, your essay, your research paper, whatever is it that your assignment is for writing. Remember, this course is about essay writing, so your manuscript means your essay. When you write your essays, you start with your draft, you edit it, and then your final paper. That's what a manuscript is. We will also be talking about in-text citations. Remember that whenever we use someone else's words, we need to credit the source or sources of information. This is done by creating an in-text citation, and it's also done by creating a references list at the end of your paper. In APA, we do not call it bibliography. We do not call it works cited. From now on, it's going to be known as your references section, and it goes at the end of the paper. Do not worry. This presentation is about mainly these three things, but the most important ones are these two, right? In-text citations and references. Let's talk about the language in an APA style paper, right? APA style language. How does the language in an APA paper need to be? There are three characteristics. The first one is clear. Be specific in descriptions and explanations. Second, concise. Condense information when you can. For example, when writing in-text citations, if the quotation is very long, if you're quoting an entire paragraph, then it's better maybe if you paraphrase it, put it into your own words. Obviously, there are ways of doing this. So we're going to be talking about in-text citations in this presentation, but try and make the information concise. And third, plain. Use simple descriptive adjectives and minimize figurative language. When writing an essay, It's not like writing poetry, writing a play where you have to explain everything, use a lot of figurative language, metaphors, similes. All of those things, you leave them for other types of writing. When using APA style, your paper needs to be clear, concise, and plain. Now, I mentioned at the beginning in the first slide, in the introductory slide, that the 6th edition was used for a long time. Now we have the 7th edition, and there's some changes. Not everything changed, so I'm going to give you the basics, the basic things that changed from the 6th to the 7th edition. One of the most important changes relates to the pronoun usage. The APA manual advises to use they as a singular pronoun or for a person whose gender is irrelevant. So don't use he, don't use she, use they or them, right? If it's the object pronoun. So here is one example. In the 6th edition, we had this example. Student success depends on what he or she did while studying. Now they recommend that in the 7th edition, the new way of writing it is student success depends on what they did while studying. So instead of using he or she, you substitute it for they. Another change refers to linguistic examples. Use double quotation marks instead of italics. Old way, while using the singular pronoun they, notice how it's italicized, right? Now you need to write it while using the singular pronoun they within quotation marks. So instead of italics, you use quotation marks. More changes. Another change, the APA manual, the 7th edition, has updated guidelines to bring writing about age, gender, and ethnic identity in line with best practices. Use first-person language. Old, a disabled. New, a person with a disability. Use descriptive phrases to label group of people instead of using adjectives as nouns. Old, the blind. New, people who are blind. More changes. Use specific labels instead of general, right? Old, Asian Americans. New, Chinese Americans. We may be talking only about Chinese Americans, yet we label them as Asian. Now, instead of going into the general, we go to the specific. This is the new way of writing in APA 7th edition. Use exact age ranges instead of broad categories. Old, people under 30 years old. New, people in the age range of 20 to 30 years old. We're not talking about people who are younger than 20, but the people who are between these two ages, 20 and 30. So instead of being general, we are specific. How to format your APA papers. Formatting, APA formatting basics. First of all, your essay, and we talk about essay writing here, right? That's our bread and butter. We're not writing a research paper, although maybe in the future you will be asked to write a research paper. Most of these guidelines also apply to research papers. It needs to be typed and double spaced, right? Double spacing, we have already talked about this before. Print it on a standard size paper. This is letter size paper, right? Regular size paper. Use 1-inch margins on all sides. The first line, it's important, of every paragraph should be indented 0.5 inches, half an inch. Indented means what we call in Spanish la sangría, right? So every paragraph, the first line needs to be indented. Use 12 point Times New Roman or a similar font. When I say similar font, later in the presentation, we're going to be talking about the fact that in the 7th edition, APA now allows you to use basically any type of font that's out there, right? In my case, I prefer Times New Roman. 12 point, I think, is the better size, and Times New Roman to me is the one to be used. And include a page number in the upper right hand side of every page. Page number goes on the top of the page, right? On the right side. Number 1, number 2, and so on. We're going to be talking later that APA has eliminated the use of a running head on the left side of the paper if you're a student. Only professional papers, professional writers need to include a running head. So like I said, when formatting your paper, APA has increased flexibility for choosing fonts. So now you can use Times New Roman, for example. These are only examples. 12 point. 12 point means the size, right? Calibri, 11 point. Georgia, 11 point. Arial, 11 point, 12 points. It doesn't matter which one you use as long as the entire paper is written in using the same type of font and size, right? For me, again, the preferred one is Times New Roman size 12. Heading levels. The APA updated manual, we're talking again about the 7th edition, has changed levels 3, 4, and 5 headings to improve readability. All headings now are in bold and in title case. The difference, headings are different by the use of italics and indentation. We're going to see this in the next slide. Headings. Level 1, centered, in bold, title case heading text starts with a new paragraph. Levels 2 and 3 are flushed left to the margin. Level 2 is also in bold, title case heading text starts with a new paragraph. Level 3 is also flushed left in bold, but this one is italicized. Title case heading starts with a new paragraph. Levels 4 and 5 need to be indented. Remember, we talked about indentation already. They are all in bold, all 5 levels in bold. Level 4 and 5 differ in that level 4 is indented bold title case heading with a period. Text continues on the same line, paragraph as the heading. Level 5, however, is indented in bold but italicized. Title case heading with a period, text continues on the same line, paragraph as the heading. So you can see the differences between all 5 levels of headings. They are all in bold, right? They are all in title case. They differ in that the fact that level 1 is centered, levels 2 and 3 are flushed to the left to the margin, and levels 3 and 4 are indented. They also differ in if they're italicized or not. Level 3 are italicized and level 5 are italicized. Students papers title page, what we call also it is known as the cover page. Here is the format. You're going to see an example in one of the next slides. First of all, full title of paper. Following the title, first and last names, the author, that'll be your name, right? First and last names. Doesn't say last names first, then your first name. Then your university, the department, university, in other words, the affiliation. What else goes on the title page, also known as the cover page? The course code and course name. INGL 3101, INGL 3103, INGL 3201. Course name. Basic English 1, Intermediate English 1, Grammar, Composition, and Reading 1. Also, the professor's name, the instructor, right? Dr. David H. Luciano. The month, day, and year when you are supposed to hand in your assignment, your due date, right? So the month, you will see later in the example, goes written in words, then the day, then the year. Also include the page number on the upper right corner of the page. Up here, you need to write the page number. This will be page 1, right? Your cover page. For you as a student, and you're not writing the running head because you're writing a student paper as a student, professional writers also need to include a running head on the left upper corner. You do not, right? You just write the page number and the cover page. The title page is page. And here is an example. Your title, right? Here's the title. This is in title case. Page number on top, this will be page number 1. The author, Oliver B. Lee, notice his first and last names, right? They also included the middle initial. Remember that in Spanish, we usually use both of our last names or surnames. So it would be Pepito Perez Rivera, right? The affiliation, right? The university, Department of Family and Community Health, University of Pennsylvania, Department of English, University of Puerto Rico at Cayey, that would be us, right? Then the course, we first write the code and then the title, INGL 3101, 3103, 3201, and the title, right? Notice there's a colon after the code. The professor's name, Dr. David H. Luciano, like I told you, and the date. Notice that the date is written in the month in Word, then the day, then the year. Due date, right? So notice how this goes in centered on the page, right? First the title, author, affiliation, course, instructor, due date. As long as you include all of these things and the page number, your title page, your cover page, has been presented in APA 7th edition. Now we're going to be talking about the second main topic included in this presentation, which is in-text citations. We have already covered the basics of APA. The next two topics are very important because when you write your papers, you need to credit your sources, but you need to how to credit your sources. Within the text, APA requires you to write in-text citations, not footnotes, not endnotes, in-text citations. And you will learn various ways of doing that. You will also have a guide that I will be giving each one of you so that you use it as a model for when you need to write these in-text citations. The next topic, how to write your references section, goes hand in hand with this one. So first of all, in-text citations help readers locate the cited source in the references section of the paper. So the last page of your paper, when you hand in your final version, right, your published version, you need to include a references page. That's the last page. When you look at those references, those are the works that you cited, the works that you use within your paper. and you go to your references section, but you go into your paper and you look at the in-text citations. Whenever you use a source, provide within parentheses the author's last name and the date of publication. The minimum thing that you need to include in the text when writing an in-text citation is author's name, usually the last name, and the date of publication. For quotations and close paraphrases, provide the author's name, date of publication, and page number. When it's a direct quotation or an exact paraphrase of the work cited, you need to also include page number. In-text citation, formatting quotations. First of all, when quoting, introduce the quotation with a signal phrase. Make sure to include the author's name, the year of publication, the page number, but keep the citation brief. Do not repeat the information. Here is almost exact paraphrase, right, of the quotation. Caruth, 2019, has stated that a traumatic response frequently entails a delayed, uncontrolled, repetitive appearance of hallucinations and other intrusive phenomena. This is on page 11. Then we have a direct quotation signaled by a phrase, right? The phrase here was has stated, and here it is frequently entails, right? Notice quotation marks. A delayed, uncontrolled, repetitive appearance of hallucinations and other intrusive phenomena. Here, in both of these, you're not paraphrasing. You're providing the quotation in quotes within the exact words within quotation marks, but signaled by a signal phrase. I mean, presented by a signal phrase.
Hello, and welcome to the Purdue OWL. I'm Alyssa Fernandez, and in this video I will explain how to write in-text citations according to the 7th edition of the APA Style Guide. Before getting into any specifics, however, let's first answer an important question. What is an in-text citation? An in-text citation is a reference that appears within the body of a paper that cites an external text via its author and year of publication. Each in-text citation should correspond to a reference list entry at the end of the paper. Thus, the in-text citation indicates to an interested reader where to look within the reference list to find the original source material. However, it is important to note that there are two ways authors can write in-text citations. In addition to parenthetical citations like the ones we've just seen, writers can also make something called a narrative citation. In parenthetical citations, the author and publication year appear within a set of parentheses that is usually placed at the end of a sentence. By contrast, in narrative citations, some or all of this information is placed within the sentence itself. As its name suggests, in parenthetical citation, the last name of the source's author and the year of publication appear, separated by a comma, within a set of parentheses. If you are borrowing the author's precise wording, that is, if you're making a quotation, you should also include a page number after the date, separated from the date by a comma. Use the abbreviation P period for one page and PP period for a range of pages. On the other hand, if you're paraphrasing an idea or argument from the source without using the author's precise wording, page numbers are optional. You might consider including them if you think they will help readers find a specific passage you've paraphrased in a complex work. In either case, the parenthetical can appear within or at the end of a sentence. If it occurs at the end of a sentence, place the period directly following the set of parentheses. In a narrative citation, however, the author's last name appears in the text of the sentence and the date appears in parentheses directly following the author's name, not separated by a comma. Just as with parenthetical citations, page numbers should be included if you're making a direct quotation. However, in this case, you should place the page number in its own parenthetical after the closing quotation mark, but before the period that ends the sentence. Sources with multiple authors have special rules, but don't worry, they're easy to follow. We're now going to quote directly from page 266 of the APA 7th edition manual. The format of the author element of the in-text citation changes depending on the number of authors and is abbreviated in some cases. For work with one or two authors, include the author names in every citation. For a work with 3 or more authors, include the name of only the first author plus et al., a Latin phrase meaning and others. In parenthetical citations for a work with 2 authors, use an ampersand between the names. In narrative citations, however, use the word and. Does that all make sense? To reiterate, if a work has 2 authors, use an ampersand to separate their names in a parenthetical and the word and in a narrative citation. If there are more than 2 authors, just put the first author's name followed by et al. Before we move on to more complicated cases, let's recap. Here is a look at the 3 different styles of citations that can appear within a text. Remember that you can use either parenthetical or narrative citations in the text as you please, or both, but every source that gets cited in the text should get a corresponding reference list entry. Now that we've covered the basics, let's move on to some examples of more complex in-text citations. To cite multiple works in the same parenthetical, place the citations in alphabetical order, separated by semicolons. Listing authors in alphabetical order helps readers retrieve sources in the reference list, where they will appear in the same order. You might cite multiple authors in the same parenthetical like this if you're trying to demonstrate that many independent sources have arrived at some shared conclusion. To cite multiple works by the same author, arrange the works by year, beginning with citations without a date and then moving forward in chronological order. In this case, you need only list the author's last name once. You might make this sort of citation if you're trying to demonstrate that an author has been writing about a certain topic or arguing a certain conclusion for a long time. To cite multiple works in which some authors' names have been abbreviated to et al., Place the citations in chronological order, regardless of what order they appear in the reference list. Note that the last few examples assume parenthetical formatting. If multiple sources are referenced as narrative citations, they may appear in any order. To cite a specific part of a source, provide additional information about the specific part you're referencing, along with the standard author date citation. In addition to page numbers, which we've already covered, it's also possible to cite paragraphs, sections, forewords, chapters, timestamps of videos or audiobooks, and slide numbers within a slide deck this way. For religious and classical works within canonically numbered parts common across editions, cite these parts instead of using page numbers. To cite a source with an unknown author, simply place the title of the work where the author's last name would typically go. If the author is explicitly listed as anonymous, however, anonymous should take the place of the author's name. Follow all other citation conventions normally. When referencing a translated, reprinted, republished, or otherwise reissued work, you should list two dates in your in-text citation. First, the original publication date, followed by the reissue date, separated by a backslash. To cite multiple references with identical author or authors and publication year, include a lowercase letter after the year to distinguish between the works. This year-letter combination is used in the reference list entry as well. Finally, to cite multiple references whose authors share the same surname but have different initials, include the first author's initials in all in-text citations, even when the year of publication differs. This helps readers locate the correct works in the reference page. If the authors have the same surname and the same initials, just use the ordinary author date format, no initials. There you have it. All of the major rules for in-text citations in APA's 7th edition style guide. For further information, be sure to check out the other videos on our channel, as well as the resources available at owl.purdue.edu. Happy citing! Hi, I'm Alyssa Fernandez with the Purdue OWL. This video will review the standards for creating a reference list according to the APA's 7th edition publication manual. For other writing resources, subscribe to our channel or visit our site at owl.purdue.edu. First, let's talk about the general format of a reference list. Begin your reference list on a new page, following the body of the text. At the top of the page, write references in centered bold font. Double-space the entire page, listing the references in alphabetical order based on the first item in the citation. Usually, this will be an author's last name, but not always. For example, some sources will have organizational authors, and entries for sources without authors will sometimes start with the source's title. Lastly, apply a hanging indent of ½ inch to each entry. This means that each entry's first line should be flush left, with each additional line indented ½ inch to the right, as shown. This helps the reader distinguish between entries more easily. Most word processors have a ruler feature at the top of the page that allows you to easily set hanging indents. Now to the elements of reference list entries. While there are differences between the various kinds of sources, each entry will generally include the same 4 elements: author, date, title, and source. By asking yourself these 4 questions, you should be able to determine each element of your reference list entry. For example, these elements can help us determine the elements needed to reference this journal article written by Ray von Fuchs. With this information, we can compose an appropriate reference list entry. Let's talk about how to format reference entries like this. First, the matter of punctuation. Punctuation marks are used to distinguish the different elements of an entry. Periods appear after each element within a reference list entry: author, date, title, and source. This makes it easy for readers to separate one element from another. However, commas and parentheses appear between different parts of the same element. For example, within the source element of this entry, we see 2 commas and a set of parentheses. The commas keep the journal title, volume and issue numbers, and page numbers separate, while the parentheses show that we're talking about issue 1 of a particular volume. One last thing to note: do not use punctuation at the end of a DOI or URL. This may disrupt link functionality if the user accidentally interprets the punctuation mark as part of the link. Now on to the specifics of the author element. Author refers to the entity responsible for a text. An author may be an individual, multiple people, a group such as a corporation or governmental institution, or even a combination of people and groups. APA has specific guidelines for formatting the author element depending on what type of author is responsible for the text. First, invert all individual authors' names. Begin with the surname. Follow this with a comma and the author's initials, separated by a space if a middle initial is included. Use commas to separate multiple author names. Use a comma and an ampersand before the final author's name. If there are only 2 authors, just use an ampersand. If citing a group author, spell out the group's entire name. It is okay to use an abbreviation or acronym, like in this case, EPA, within the body of the text. However, in the reference list, you must include the full name of the group. Some sources have many authors. APA 7 requires surnames and initials for up to 20 authors. If a source has more than 20 authors, include the first 19 authors listed, followed by a comma, an ellipsis, and then the final author credited for the text. The date element in a reference list refers to the date of publication. This can take any of the following forms, depending on the information available to you: year only, year, month, and day, exact date; year and month, year and season, or a range of dates. Include the date within parentheses, separating the year of publication from any additional date-related information. Include a period at the end of the date information. When referencing online works, it is important to keep a few additional things in mind. Some online texts are regularly updated to reflect current information. If an updated date is available on the website, use that date as opposed to the date of its original publication. Some online sources, such as social media pages or dictionary entries, are designed to change over time. In these cases, you should also include a retrieval date in your reference. This indicates to readers that the version you are listing may be somewhat different than the version they retrieve. Sometimes a publication date is unknown or cannot be determined. For texts without a determined date, write ND, which stands for no date in parentheses. Include a period after the N and D. Do not include a space between the letters. Hi, I'm Alyssa Fernandez with the Purdue OWL. This video will review the standards for creating a reference list according to the APA's 7th edition publication manual. For other writing resources, subscribe to our channel or visit our site at owl.purdue.edu. The following guidelines apply when formatting the title element of a reference list entry. For works that are part of a greater whole, like chapters in an edited collection or a journal article, do not italicize the title or use quotation marks. Capitalize using sentence case. This means capitalizing the first word of the primary title, the first word of any subtitle, and any proper nouns. For works that stand on their own, like books and web pages, italicize the title and use the same sentence case capitalizing rules. Finish the title element with a period. However, if the title ends with a different punctuation mark, a question mark, or an exclamation point, that punctuation supplants the period. Now onto the source element. In a reference list entry, the source refers to the location where a reader can locate the text. The source can refer to the location of a work that is part of a greater whole, such as a chapter in an edited collection, a journal, or a web page. The source can also describe a work that stands as a whole on its own, such as a book, a dissertation, or a TV show. The precise process for formatting the source element can vary considerably from source to source, so let's look at some common examples. When a periodical is the source, include the periodical title, volume number, and page range. Capitalize and italicize the periodical title and volume number, enclosing the issue number in parentheses. Many online periodicals publish articles without volume numbers or page numbers. In these cases, simply include the title of the periodical, capitalized and italicized. For works within an edited collection, type in followed by the initials and the page range. For collections with more than one editor, follow these same rules but following the name of the final credited editor, write eds. Note that like periodicals, container works like edited collections are capitalized in title case. Include social media in your reference list only when the content you are citing was originally published there. If the social media page directed you to another site where you retrieved information, cite that source directly. To cite a social media source, provide the site name in the source element, capitalized without italics. Include a period after the social media site name, followed by the URL. When a website is the source for a reference, provide the website name in titles without italics. Include a period after the website name, followed by the URL. If the author of the work is the same as the website name, however, omit the site name so as to avoid repetition. This can frequently happen when the source's author is an organization. When including a source with a DOI or URL, follow these guidelines. Include a DOI for all works that have a DOI, regardless of whether you use the online or print version. If a print work does not contain a DOI, do not use a DOI or URL in your reference entry. If an online work has both a DOI and URL, include only the DOI. If an online work has a URL but no DOI, include the URL in your reference. Present both DOIs and URLs as hyperlinks so that a reader can access the online content directly and easily. That just about covers the basics. Now, let's cover some uncommon cases that don't necessarily follow the rules we've just discussed. For translated works, cite the texts in the language in which the translation was published. That is, if you are citing a text in English that was originally published in French, you should cite the English translation you used. In this case, you should also give credit to the translators. For these texts, also provide the year the text was first published in its original language. This information is placed at the end of the reference in parentheses, as shown here. You can follow the same rule with republished or reissued texts. Use the date of republication for the date element. Then, at the end of the citation entry, add original work published year in parentheses. If the original date of publication is unknown, which is common for classical or ancient sources, you can use the abbreviation CA, which stands for circa, to indicate the approximate creation date. When organizing reference lists, remember that nothing precedes something for the purpose of alphabetization. For instance, mil VK would precede mils AD, even though S comes before V. Also, when alphabetizing names, disregard any spaces or punctuation marks in two-name last surnames. Here, author Woods precedes author Wood Thompson because S precedes T in the alphabet. To reference multiple works by the same author, order entries in chronological order beginning with the first published. References with no date precede references with dates. References with the same publication year can be distinguished by lettering the years A, B, C, and so on. References still in press are listed last. These same rules apply when referencing multiple texts written by the same set of two or more authors. Some texts have no official author. However, before treating a text as though it has no author, consider whether a group or organization is the author. If not, begin the reference with the first word of the title, and alphabetize the entry by its first letter, excluding words like a, an, or the. For example, a text with an unknown author titled A Meeting of the Minds would follow a text authored by Mason P.T., and precede one authored by Millerin K.S. That's all the time we have for today. Once you've put the guidelines in this video into practice, your reference list should be an orderly, professional, and consistent document. Most importantly, it should be useful for readers who want to replicate the awesome work you've done. We hope you found this guide helpful. For additional information, including guidelines for citation situations we haven't covered here, visit the Purdue OWL at owl.purdue.edu. Happy referencing!
Welcome to this presentation on APA-style citations. I'm Patricia Morris, Coordinator of Library Research at Florida Gateway College Library. In this session, we will cover key details for APA citations using the publication manual of the American Psychological Association 7th edition. You may be familiar with the previous 6th edition. This video will cover the 7th edition of the APA manual. We will also be showing the APA-style website, apastyle.apa.org, that has lots of helpful information. The APA format style is primarily used for the natural, social, and behavioral sciences, including health and technology-related fields, but can be assigned by an instructor of any subject area. Note that there are a lot of rules with any citation style, but the number one rule is to always follow your instructor's directions even when they differ from the information given here. First, why do we need to cite our resources? When you write a paper, you will have a combination of information, ideas, and concepts, some that are original to you, and some information, ideas, and concepts that come from other sources, the research that you've done in preparing to write your paper. For any information that is not original to you, you must provide a citation that will answer the question, how do you know this? We use citations to show that you as a college student did the research yourself, to give credit for the work of others, to provide enough information so someone can look up the original source, and to avoid plagiarism. Today's presentation will help you understand how to use citations to properly give credit for the work of others and avoid plagiarism. There are two main ways we give credit in a paper. In-text citations, and specifically parenthetical citations, are notations used within the body of your paper to give credit right after you use the words or ideas of another. These then point the reader to the end of paper references page for the full and complete reference entry. Let's look at details for in-text citations in APA style. You can use information from a resource in several ways. A quote or quotation uses the author's exact words and must be attributed to the original author. We use quotation marks to show it is word for word from the original source. You could also paraphrase or summarize by putting the author's ideas in your own words. Because the information is not original to you, whether you quote, paraphrase, or summarize, you have to provide a citation. Parenthetical citations use the author date notation, adding a page number for a direct quote. Here are the examples with parenthetical citations added. It would be parentheses, author's last name, comma, year of publication, close parentheses. And for a quotation, you include P period and the page number. Note that the beginning parentheses is outside the quotation marks for a quote, and the final period comes after the closing parentheses. Another type of in-text citation is the narrative citation, in which you use the author's name as part of your sentence construction, followed by the year of publication in parentheses. There are variations on in-text citations, and this chart, taken from page 266 of the APA Publication Manual, compares formats when you have different types of authors, showing both parenthetical and narrative citation examples. You can also go to the apastyle.apa.org website, click on Style and Grammar Guidelines, and then In-Text Citations for more information and examples. Now let's look at creating entries for the end of paper list of resources called references. APA style has four basic elements: author, date, title, and source. These tell us who is responsible for the work, when it was published, what it's called, and where it can be retrieved. Any reference list entry will have variations of these elements. Here is an example taken from page 283 of the APA Manual, showing how a citation entry is built. We look at our source, in this case a journal article, and find the elements we need: author, date, title, and source. The source here is the publication information for this article, including the journal title, volume and issue numbers, page numbers, and DOI. More about DOI shortly. Taking these elements, we can create the reference list entry. An important detail in APA is the capitalization of titles, because there are two capitalization styles: sentence case and title case. In sentence case, you only capitalize the first letter of the first word, just like in a regular sentence like this. Libraries are a great place to study for exams. Only the L in libraries is uppercase, everything else is lowercase. These titles of books and articles are in sentence case. If you have a subtitle, you also capitalize only the first letter of the first word of the subtitle. Proper nouns such as the names of people or places are always capitalized as you normally would, like Abraham Lincoln. Sentence case is used for the titles of articles, books, and other works in the reference list. A common error is to have incorrect capitalization of article and book titles in the reference list. They use sentence case. The other capitalization style is title case. In title case, you capitalize the first letter of all the major words, as shown here. Usually words of 3 or fewer letters are not capitalized. Journal titles are always in title case and are italicized. The titles of articles, books, and other works within the text or body of your paper are in title case. Note that the capitalization style depends on where you are using the title, if it's in the reference list or within the body of your paper. For example, in the reference list, an article title is in sentence case, while in a paragraph, an article title is in title case and in quotations. This ebook title in the reference list is in sentence case and in italics. Within a paragraph, it is in title case and in italics. Here's another example. In this reference entry, the article title is in sentence case. And within the paper, the article title is in title case and in quotations. Journal titles are always in title case and italics. See pages 167 to 168 of the APA manual, or go to apastyle.apa.org for more information and examples on sentence case and title case capitalization. The APA Style website has helpful quick reference guides to create reference entries for journal articles, books, and a chapter in an edited book. To find them, go to the apastyle.apa.org website and click on Instructional Aids, then scroll down to Reference Quick Guide. Let's create a reference entry for this article. All the information we need is included here at the top and will follow the format of the Quick Reference Guide for a journal article, going element by element. We're going to be looking at the basics here, but there are many variations and details for each element. See Chapter 9 on the reference list and Chapter 10 for reference examples in the APA manual or on the APA Style website for much more. For the author, list the last name, comma, and then only the initials for the first name, period. Do not spell out first or middle names and do not include credentials such as RN or PhD. If there are two authors, use an ampersand between the names. The author is Yildiz, comma, E, period. Next is the year of publication, 2019, which is in parentheses and has a period after the closing parentheses. The article title and subtitle are Ethics in Nursing, a systematic review of the framework of evidence perspective. The article title and subtitle are in sentence case, then period. The rest of the entry pertains to the source element. We have the name of the periodical, the journal Nursing Ethics, which is in title case and italics, comma. Then the volume number 26, which is also in italics. Followed directly by the issue number 4, which is in parentheses and is not in italics. And note that there is no space between the volume number and the parentheses for the issue number. Then comma. And then the page number or page range, here 1128 through 1148, period. The final part of this entry is the DOI. DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier and is an alphanumeric string that is unique to this article and is written as a hyperlink. The format is https://doi.org/ and then the string. Most scholarly articles will have a DOI either included with the article or given on the detail page in the database like this, but they may be written in a different format. If it is not in the correct DOI format, rewrite it like this. There is no concluding period to the entry after a DOI. This is the complete entry for this article. Reference entries are double-spaced with the first line flush with the left margin and subsequent lines indented a ½ inch. If your article does not have a DOI, there are several things to consider. If the article was originally published in a journal or on a website and is included in a database such as the EBSCO or Gale databases but does not have a DOI, you will conclude the entry after the page number. Do not include the database name or any URL. This entry will look the same as if it was from a print journal. An exception to this would be an article from a database that, quote, publishes original proprietary works available only in that database. CQ Researcher, which has original reports not published elsewhere, is this type of database. Ask yourself, is this the only place I can get this content? If yes, the source element would include the name of the database in title case and italics, and any other given publication information such as volume and issue number and a period. Then include the URL. In APA, do not put a period at the end of an entry after a DOI or a URL. Your research may come from a website and not a database. The format would be author, period, the date, however it is given in the source, in parentheses, period, title of the specific web page you are using, in sentence case and in italics, period, then the name of the larger website, if any, and if different from the author, period, and then the URL with no concluding period. If the author and the website name are the same, put it only in the author element, as in the World Health Organization example. If the website does not show a date, put N period D period in parentheses and include a retrieval date showing the date you accessed the information before the URL. Also, if the information will likely change, include a retrieval date. Here are some variations to the source element. Follow an example that most closely matches the resource you are using. There are so many rules in APA that we have highlighted only a few key details. Remember that the APA Publication Manual and the APA Style website are your best resources for learning correctly formatted citations and papers. Both formats have over 100 examples of reference entries and in-text citations, examples of rules, and sample papers. You can always contact the FGC Library with questions about citations. We are here to help. Thank you for watching, and good luck.